Michael, welcome to the podcast, mate. Absolute pleasure to have you on. So today's going to be a really interesting episode for those that obviously haven't heard your story. I want to delve into a bit about your background. So you're obviously a primary secondary teacher, and you've been doing that for almost 25 years, almost 3 decades there. And more recently, you've been inspired by the likes of Nelson Mandela. And he's sort of used the sport as a way to change the world. And you've used him as a little bit of an icon or a figure to help motivate you to make some major developments in AFL in Pakistan. So you've had the chance recently to meet the Pakistan sports minister. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience, what that's been like?
Yeah, firstly, great to be here, Hayden, and really appreciate your opportunity to allowing me to tell my story. And it all started way back in 2014. I've been running a children's non-for-profit, totally volunteer sporting charity called Footies for All. And in 2014, the International AFL Cup was held in Melbourne with teams from all over the world. And the Pakistan men's team were here, and some friends asked me to donate some footballs and cones and sporting equipment to help them in that tournament. And from there, I got to meet the players, obviously the administration and the coaching staff. And then in 2017, the International Cup was held again in Melbourne. And the Pakistan women's team was a total national team from Pakistan. And unfortunately, the coach didn't arrive. There was some issues with the visa. And literally 2 days before the tournament started, some friends of mine from AFL Pakistan here in Melbourne rang me and said, "Are you interested in coaching the women's team in the tournament?" And I said, I'd love that opportunity. Unbeknownst to me, most of them couldn't speak English, and also that they thought they were playing football with the round ball, not AFL, because the communication back in Pakistan for these women was not the best. So when they arrived, and there was 26, the most courageous and inspirational young women that I've ever met in my life, to come halfway around the world to play a foreign game in a foreign language up against teams that have been playing for all throughout their lifetime, was quite extraordinary, really. And that's another story that I can go through with you at some stage as well. And there was 3 or 4 of those in Pakistan AFL players that were international soccer players, Abir Haider, Myra Ahmed, international hockey players, badminton players. So we had a great sporting ability for some of them, but for most of them, they were out of their villages, out of their cities, and I'm not sure what they were actually told that they were actually doing, but they got a bit of a shock when they got here. We played Great Britain in the first game. We were very strong, as you might imagine, and got beaten 180-0. But what inspired me and got me to go back to Pakistan, I've been very lucky to visit twice, in 2019, and then last year in 2022. And really was the first Australian international AFL coach over there. And pretty much my time in the country, I spent 3 weeks there, or 10 days there in 2019, 3 weeks there in 2022. I was the only Western tourist that I saw around the whole country, which is really sad in one way, because the people of Pakistan are extraordinary in relation to their welcomeness, in relation to their love of sport. I think we get on very well because we have that same passion for sport. They have beautiful food, their music and art, and their natural environment's extraordinary. In the middle of the country, they got sugarcane, and really was from me being inspired by those women that came from across the world to play sport. They really didn't know what they were doing. We played 4 games. They never gave up. They got absolutely smashed. You talk about hard tackles on AFL at the moment they're going through. I tell you what, every one of my Pakistan women's team that got absolutely smashed. Karishma Ali, she's now an international soccer coach over in Pakistan, was about 4 foot high. And they kept bouncing up, and that resilience and that courage, because they were representing their country, and no matter what, they were going to get up and continue going on. And they became the tournament favourite. even though we only kicked 1 goal in our last game. And it was like we won the grand final when we did that. And officials and players from both sides were playing a world team, combined team, all ran on the team field to celebrate. At the end of every game, they would link hands and arms with the other teams, Fiji in particular, and sing together. And that's the power of sport, isn't it? So really from that, I was given the opportunity, or they said, look, we've come to your country, please come to our country, come to Pakistan. Everyone over here pretty much said you're mad, including my family, and it's, you're crazy. But, to create world peace and create connections and give opportunities and inspire hope, because they rarely have Western tourists in the country. So when I went back in 2019, I did 10 cities in 10 days. I started down south in Karachi, and I travelled up the middle to Gujranwala, then across to Lahore, Swabi, the great town of Swabi, also Multan, and then up to Islamabad, and did 10. Every city that I went to, we ran footy clinics for males and females, and really got an opportunity, all by road as well. It was extraordinary. I ran, 15 to 20-hour days every day. That was in 2019. And from that, obviously kept in contact with everyone over there. And then my work last year as a teacher, I was actually in 6 months in the Outback at Nookamba Cattle Station as a principal in Outback WA. And they very kindly allowed me to have time off for 4 weeks to travel to Pakistan to select, train and coach a men's team for the October 2022 AFL Asian Cup. And it was the first time ever in the history of 20 years that an all-national team from a country had participated in the Cup. And hats off to AFL Asia and Simon Highfield for his amazing organisation to get that tournament up and running. And really, the extraordinary thing is that when we went to the Asian Cup, majority of the teams from around the world, from around Asia, were with expat Australians. Our team, apart from me, was all Pakistanis. We took 25 Pakistani national men. Half of them never played a proper game of AFL in their lives, nevertheless gone to a tournament overseas. And a few of them never even been out of their village. We had Taj from Swabi, a farmer, and he was 40, but he was the fittest bloke in the team because of his ability to, work so hard as a farmer. We had some people from the street, and that amazing opportunity to play sport, represent their country, and we were very blessed. And coaches aren't as good as their players, and I had the most amazing players. We had to win 5 games in a row in 5 hours, including the grand final. We got over Laos in the semi-final by a point, and that was due to a player, Yasser, from Gujranwala. He split the webbing in his finger, and he had 5 stitches. And I wasn't getting enough drive out of my forward line. So I said to him, and he was a big, strong lad, and he could jump and kick. I said, Yasser, look, I really need you. I know you're injured. I know you're hurting. He goes, what can I do? This is for my country. What can I do? I'm there for you. I stuck him in at full forward. And he literally kicked a point in the last couple of minutes of the game to win the game by a point to put us into the grand final, where we were 3 goals down at half time, and we were looking like, we couldn't even score. And I pulled the players together, and I pulled the captain, Tala, an amazing man. He was 6'4" and could kick it 50 metres with a torp. I pulled them all together, and I said, this is what, because I was in Pakistan for 3 weeks prior. 2 weeks of it was travelling the country again to select elite players from the different regions. And then we had a 10-day camp where for 5 hours a day, I was teaching them the rules because they didn't even know the rules of AFL. So I adapted the style, sort of like a blitzkrieg attack, that we just kick it as long as we could, and then everyone run forward and then kick it again, and then put a couple of skillful players in the forward line. My forward pocket was a national soccer player, Tawheed. And I just said to him, when the ball hits the ground, don't worry about picking it up. Just kick it through the sticks. I showed him the goals, and he was the leading goal kicker for the division. We had the big man, a tick. We called him the general because he looked like he was straight out of Afghanistan. And I think everyone else was scared of him as well that we played against, and he just kept rebounding from centre half back. He was given player of the competition for Division 3 as well. And the big ruckman Tuller, we had a marathon runner in the midfield, Bilal, and I just said, tap it to the Bilal, and Bilal, you need to run. And luckily for us, a lot of the expat Aussies in the grand final had been out partying in Bangkok, Thailand, where the Asian Cup was held. And they ran out of legs, what I was hoping for in the second half. We kicked 6 goals in 10 minutes, and the rest is history. The first team in 20 years of the competition to win at their first attempt and to win as a truly national Pakistani team. And it just shows, doesn't it? And you've been involved in sport, and a lot of people who are listening are involved in sport. That's the power of sport. You can inspire people. You can get people to work together. You know, half these people, I had to have a translator for every single instruction I gave. They speak Urdu in Pakistan. And, we had that language barrier the whole time as well. But it didn't matter. They knew what they had to do. In sport, you've got to get the footy, you've got to get the ball, and you've got to kick more goals than the opposition. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's incredible the way you've been able to, galvanize Pakistan. You talk about there, the language barrier, potential cultural differences. Now, I spoke to one previous guest, Hayden Quinn, who's a master chef, and he travels the world, and he was talking about how food can serve as a language in itself. When you travel to different countries, the flavors speak for themselves. Now, we were just talking about Nelson Mandela being one of your kind of idols or person you based a lot of your work off. And there was that quote from 2000 in the inaugural Laureus Sports Awards, where he stated that sport has the power to change the world, has the power to inspire, it has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to the youth in a language they understand. And I think that really reiterates what you're saying there about how sport, even if there is that language barrier, it is a way to galvanize the troops and really make a dent in some of those big games that you're talking about there. So in terms of the background into footy in Asia, so there was a report done by the AFL in 2022, and they looked at the participation rates across Asia. And in the last year, between 2021 and 2022, there was a 22% increase in total participation. There's now around 9,785 active participants in Asia. And that's across 15 teams. And some of the largest teams there being China, India, and Korea. And female participation, as we were just discussing before, you taking on the coaching role with the female team, that 275% increase in the last year as well. So almost triple the number of active participants across Asia. Now, in terms of, I guess, that your role in coaching the Pakistan national team, in that last year, how have you felt things change in terms of, I guess, the engagement from the players? Are they starting to become more involved in, I guess, the AFL competition in Australia and being more understanding of the rules and skills involved and required in order to perform at the highest level? And how have you impacted the players?
Yeah, certainly are. I mean, hats off to AFL Pakistan, the president, Sardar Tariq, the general secretary, Chaudhry Ali. Like, I went over there, again, there was no Australians that are running it or, working with them. They set it up all themselves in 2014. One of them saw it on YouTube and liked the game and thought, I want to bring this to Pakistan. And as I said, in 2019, I was the first Australian to travel over there. And they had their games. I went to national championships. They've got teams in the capital cities, 2 teams in Islamabad, a couple of teams in Multan, a team in Lahore, and plenty of interest in other the major cities, Karachi, Gujranwala. There's 3 or 4 teams up and ready to go, males and females. And as you know, and as our listeners know, it's difficult for females to play sport in Pakistan. So for the males to be encouraging and working with different organisations to get females to participate, and they love it, mate. I've never seen such passion for the game around the world in relation to they think it's they do kabaddi over there, which is a wrestling type of game. So it really is. And then they've got obviously cricket. They love their cricket. Cricket's played everywhere. Hockey, they're very strong at hockey. So it really is. I explained to them that AFL is the combination of all their sports. And it's so much more fun, and especially the girls. The girls love the tackling and physicality, and they get that opportunity to be together with a group of women, which they don't get. In the streets of Pakistan, very difficult to see women just walking around. Islamabad was really modernised and an open city, very similar to Canberra and Melbourne and Sydney. But a lot of the regional areas I went to are still very traditional in relation to their views. And again, it's not me to judge. When I go back into any country, and I've done a lot of work also in sport in Fiji, that's the way it is. And I'm a guest in their country, and it is an honour to be there visiting. And if I can engage and change and develop people's knowledge, which international tourists do in different countries, as well as to learn. As I said, you talked about their food's extraordinary. I had an omelette, the Pakistani omelette, spice, everything's got spice in it, and my tummy didn't go too well over there, but I tried every pakora and biryani, all the Pakistani foods. I just love the opportunity to try different foods. Their music is extraordinary, their art, and again, their love of sports, just unbelievable, and their love of AFL. And again, that comes down, you said, the development of the game. You've got Pakistani nationals, Sardar and Chaudhry Ali, and we've got Dr. Shabazz here in Melbourne, the Vice President of AFL Pakistan. They travel the country, and I went to both trips that I went to, I made a point to go to schools, and I went to female schools as well in Islamabad and in Gujranwala, Lahore, and Swabi, and the kids loved it. They absolutely, I was like a rock star. They call it like Brad Pitt. You had TV cameras, I had media conferences, you had kids coming. I absolutely got mobbed one school. There was 1,000 kids on the oval. Like, I couldn't get to the car. You're signing autographs and taking selfies, and all I was, who am I? Michael Gallus from Melbourne, Australia, school teacher. And it's just extraordinary, their love of AFL. And they all knew about Australia and kangaroos. And again, you get that opportunity internationally. It's not just coaching and developing AFL. It's, it's educating about it, what a great country Australia is, and discussing, their view of the Western world from a Muslim nation point of view, which is very different from our view here, and the view the world has of Pakistan as well, which is skewed in certain areas. And as I said, the people are beautiful. A lot of people were very very poor, and yet I was invited into their house and given meals and treated like a king. And that goes to the testament of the people, doesn't it? That the ones with hardly anything will take the shirt off their own backs for an international visitor, and that's the huge impact that I saw. And again, that is why the game is developing so well, because you've got good people behind it. And with me going over, with them winning the Division 3 Asian Cup in Bangkok last year, they went home national heroes on TV and lauded in their villages and in their towns. And some of the players have started up AFL teams themselves in their towns and regions, and that's why the participation rates are growing. We've got the International Asian Cup again this year in October, and then the AFL have got the International Cup in Gold Coast in 2024. So we're obviously gearing our training, and they need to get better. The players of Pakistan, they go into Division 2 this year because we won Division 3. So they have to improve, like you said, and they are.
Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about your background in terms of education as we go through today. We explore a bit of your past as well. But I've recently listened to a podcast. I don't know if you've listened to this before, but Mark Bouris, Straight Talk, and he was talking to the CEO of the NRL, Peter V'landys, and they were talking about how AFL has tapped into partnerships with schools really well in comparison to like the NRL, rugby union, for instance. Is this one of the reasons why you have come into working with the AFL? Was it an innate passion of yours you have developed over time through working in a school setting? I understand that you've coached obviously AFL, soccer, basketball, and cricket. Is that one of the sort of, I guess, early starts for you working in this space?
Yeah, that's correct. I've got three of my own children as well, all grown up now, 17 to 23. And I was very lucky to teach in an elite private school in Melbourne, Penley and Essendon Grammar School, which a lot of AFL current players, Trent Cotchin from Richmond, also Craig Rayner at Brisbane Lions, Curtis Taylor, Kangaroos, Dustin Fletcher. Lots of elite players have come through, and I've been lucky enough to teach some of them. And be involved in, we had a very big sport focus with the school in relation. I taught primary. They'd have 2 PE lessons plus 2 house sport lessons a week, plus they'd engage in the AGSV Saturday morning competition, summer and winter sport, and I was a coach in all that in my 22 years at Penley and Essendon Grammar School. And then I saw sport and the impact that it makes on kids. It develops discipline, it develops resilience, it develops passion, commitment, gives kids the opportunity to learn how to win and lose and be gracious winners and humble losers as well, which I think in this day and age, that's been taken away a lot. Kids are given, it's the yes generation, it's the me generation. They need to have adversity in their lives, and they need to be taught how to handle those emotions and adversity. And you can do that through the power of sport. Perseverance, it teaches them goal setting. And my ability also, I did a lot of coaching in the local community with my kids, with Aberfeldy Football Club, and was one of the first female AFL coaches with my daughter at Pegs FC. And again, the ability to teach kids all those different things that they're going to use throughout all their lives. All our listeners, all your listeners who have been involved in sport, and your former interviewers you've had, especially Melinda Gainsford-Taylor, would tell you exactly the same thing. And also how much fun sport is. And another reason that I started the charity when I turned 40, a children's sporting charity, and we focus a lot in relation to remote Indigenous areas, and I've been blessed and honoured to have permission to travel to different areas across Australia, Alco Island and Yarrabah and Numbulwah on the Gulf of Carpenter Territory, also in Alice Springs and APY lands in Adelaide, and give opportunities through sport, because that's the ability to change lives. Nelson Mandela, as you said, and it's true, and he proved it winning the World Cup for South Africa as well after apartheid, which was just extraordinary. And that brought the whole country together as well. And yeah, it has been a great passion of mine through my life, and that's through the education and through the changes I've seen in the kids that I've been lucky enough to teach. Currently a PE teacher in Melbourne at the moment, and having the prep kids who are 3, 4, 5-year-olds and shooting their first basket or even bouncing their first ball, and the joy that it brings, and you're making a huge difference to their confidence and to the ability for them to develop skills to use in every other subject and every other way of life.
Yeah, schools are really ideal settings, aren't they? Students are a captive audience to teachers. Teachers have the responsibility and the opportunity to embed skills and values and develop discipline and all of those attributes that you spoke about. And so it's really, one of those fundamental early, I guess you'd say, settings in a adolescent or child's life, when they have a chance to develop different fundamental movement patterns and skills that they can sustain a lifetime of engagement in sport and physical activity. Now, when you turned 40, you decided to link up with a number of people that you've met throughout your time working in the education, space, and you looked at combining both your physical education work and your engagement in sport to create a volunteer children's sporting charity called Footies for All. Now, this has been running since 2012, and currently you've had around 27,000 participants, majority of which have come from, remote Indigenous communities, Western Australia, Queensland, the Northern Territory, and essentially you've been running these clinics and providing them with a complementary football. Can you tell us a little bit about this Footies for All initiative and how effective it's been in the community, but also for you personally? How's that been?
Yeah, as you said, I turned 40, had a midlife crisis. Most people buy a Ferrari, and I think my wife would wish I had her rather than starting a charity. No, she's and again, the reason you're able to do anything in life at an elite level or people say extreme or crazy level that I'm involved in is due to the amazing team around you. And I've been very blessed to have the most amazing wife, Amanda, and 3 kids, Thomas, Lily, and Benjamin Gallus, who support everything that I do and have been heavily involved in the charity. And I thought, most likely to die in the second 40 years of my life than the first 40. So even though, I thought I'd done a good job as a teacher and as a parent, that I really wanted to create some positive change. And really, I was born in Fiji. My mum and dad were over there teaching English for a couple of years, and they're Australian, and we came to Melbourne in 1973. And I really wanted to make a difference for kids that are missing out. And again, we just discussed the power of sport, and Nelson Mandela is a great mentor and inspiration to me through what he did in his life and through what he said about sport. And I knew all I had to do was link up. I'd also commentated AFL. I also worked for the AFL Brisbane Lions as a recruiter for a couple of years part-time down here in Melbourne. And I worked for the National Indigenous Radio Service calling AFL, as well as KROCK and SEN commercial stations, and Inner FM, one of the local community stations down here in Melbourne. So I knew a lot of people in football. And through Penley and Essendon Grammar School, I knew a lot of business people that I would, and I thought if I can link together all those good people, we can create opportunities, especially in remote Aboriginal communities across Australia. They love their sport. And, I lived it last year for 6 months in Nookambah Aboriginal community, and their sporting ability of the kids. I started a sporting program before school. We'd have half an hour, the whole school. We'd just go to the basketball court and play basketball, soccer, kick the AFL. We had grade 2 kids at half court. We had the ability to kick an AFL ball, the old AFL footy ball through the basketball hoop at half court, and they do it regularly. And then, and their ability in athletics is just extraordinary. And they miss out. Most of them, a lot of the remote communities I go to, they kick around plastic Coke bottles, and they don't have the ability just to have a ball or just to have someone come out there. And what I found, we've been running it for 12 years now, totally volunteer. And we've got a big shout out to all the Footy for All supporters and volunteers around Australia. We've got amazing base of people that understand sport, and everyone's involved in sport, aren't they, Hayden? Whether it's a sponsor, whether it's a supporter, whether it's a player at any age. So I drew on that, engagement and likeness for everyone. And we've had no state or federal or government funding. I've met just about every politician here in Victoria. I've met 2 prime ministers to ask them for help. And, sadly, they're just really not interested because no one's done this before and it doesn't tick any of their boxes. We've won awards in Victoria as the, Volunteer of the Year award from the Premier Daniel Andrews, which is great. But, it would have been great for, it's our taxpayers' money, so I don't understand how I still can't understand how we've never got any funding for these programs that we've run. And you just keep doing it. We've got great people out there. Nissan supported us with a Footies for All car to drive around Victoria. TNT, or now FedEx, have been amazing in freighting all our equipment to remote areas. We link up with the way that the charity works. You link up with schools or other like-minded charities. Brian Curl in Brisbane does amazing work with Aboriginal kids in basketball. Ricky Baldwin here in Melbourne up in the Northern Territory and WA, Fremantle community programs, and it's just extraordinary the work that is being done, and the impact that it makes when you go. It's not. I thought it was all about running a sporting clinic and teaching them about better health practices and nutrition, but it's actually for the people and the kids that someone has taken the time to believe that they warrant to come out and meet them and say hello. Basically, you're delivering. It's not a ball. It's hope. It's giving them hope that the conditions are so tough out there. You know, I lived out there for 6 months in the summer, and you know, the resilience that they need to continue on, and for some people to come out and say, okay, yeah, we know you love your sport. We're going to run a clinic, and then we're going to give you a ball to play with. You know, we're going to give you a ball that's yours. And, you know, that's extraordinary to some of these kids and some of these communities that you've gathered people together from around Australia to come out and say you're valued, you are important, and we're going to give you an opportunity through sport. And that's the impact. It's not the ball, it's not the clinic. It's that groups of Australians are working together to provide opportunities.
So moving into Fiji now, so I understand that, you know, moving from those remote indigenous communities across to Fiji, how has that been? Obviously moving over to back home to where you were born in the early stages, but how have things changed over there? Is Fiji currently got a large base of participants in AFL over there, and you know, how have you changed things in that space?
Most of my work, to be honest, in Fiji has been through rugby union. I linked up with a Fijian charity, Island Breeze Rugby Plus, and Wonga and Jade Baravila here in Melbourne, who have currently moved to Brisbane. And it was through them that they've established. I went over to Fiji twice, and we ran clinics on the island of Overlau in the village of Vuma. I was born in Bar on the main island of Viti Level, and this is a small island on the right-hand side. And Wonga and Jade through Island Breeze Rugby Plus would run these camps in Fiji for rugby union, and then find the best 3 or 4 players and bring them to Melbourne. And then they were involved with the Box Hill Rugby Club and then the Melbourne Rebels. And now that they've moved up to Queensland, provide a pathway into the Queensland Reds. And then, you know, if they're good enough, which they were, to go into the Australian Wallabies. And, you know, I spoke to a father of, his name escapes me now, but one of the Fijian rugby union players for Australia. He came from this tiny island of Overlau, and I was speaking to his dad on the beach there. It was extraordinary. He was telling me his son, when he was 5, would just play rugby all day, every day. And when it was on the telly, he'd run in and he'd tell his dad, one day, Dad, you're going to see me there. And thanks to Wonga and Island Breeze, that bringing him to Australia and giving him those opportunities. And then, you know, with Fijian people, a lot of their money that they earn in contracts in professional sport goes back to their villages and back to their homelands. And you know, I lived in the villages when I go over there. I don't stay in 5-star hotels. And, you know, they struggle for water. They live off the land. They struggle for electricity. So, you know, sport can bring a powerful pathway into their lives that can provide opportunities for the kids to go to school, get educated, and then, you know, they love rugby. I've had opportunities to link with AFL Fiji when I've been there, and they love AFL as well. And that's growing. They have in Suva, they have 6 or 8 teams, males and females. They're also very strong when they come out and play the International Cup. So AFL is alive and well in Fiji as well. But like cricket in Pakistan, it's their national sport, and their true love is through rugby union. And it doesn't matter what sport, it does. It can be basketball, soccer, netball, cricket, AFL. If you're providing positivity, you're teaching all those buzzwords we spoke about, discipline and respect and compassion and passion and the ability to win and lose. And again, if you're playing sport, you're healthy, you're active, and you're in a positive mindset that everyone needs to be playing no matter what age. And then if you're getting too old like me, your coach or your support or your sponsor, and it makes such a difference. And it made such a difference to the lives of the kids that I saw in Fiji, their ability to play. And again, like the Indigenous kids in remote communities, mate, that is untapped talent, as we know, in rugby league and AFL. And it's just giving them those opportunities to get those pathways into the elite level, because in AFL the most extraordinary players are the Indigenous players, and for the amazing abilities that they hold. And that's the same in every one of the remote communities I went to and have been to and will continue to go to give those kids those opportunities and that hope to strive to be an elite player, or just to play the game and have fun doing it.
So you talked about how you're working in recruitment with the Brisbane Lions for 2 years. Has there been a almost indirect role in recruitment, going over to Fiji and delivering the Footies for All program? In that, have you served as almost like recruiting for AFL teams overseas? Has there been any good stories where you've, cherry-picked some of the best talent overseas and brought them back home to the AFL? I guess we just talked about some examples in Union, but what about in the AFL realm?
Yeah, not as yet. They're still developing in relation to their abilities, and they're very raw. The AFL does have international rookies, and I still got some recruiter friends. I just was working with a young boy here in Melbourne who's playing soccer. He's from his dad was a Kenyan Olympic runner, and he's playing soccer with Melbourne Victory, and I've just been able to work his way into the Carlton Academy squad. So he's a state sprinter and long jumper and high jumper, so he's got all the attributes to be an outstanding AFL player, and he's played a little bit of AFL. So fingers crossed, he continues to develop and possibly get opportunities. I'm working really hard to get some of the Pakistan national players that played really well out to Australia to get opportunities through local level, because their leagues over there, they don't play every week, maybe it's once a month. But there's definitely talent in Pakistan that I've seen, that male and female, that would walk into the VFL sides, which is the second tier competition in AFL, and also the over time, no doubt. I saw those kids for the 2 years that I worked for the Brisbane Lions across the elite junior competitions, and the kids that I saw in Pakistan have that raw potential, that's for sure. And same in Fiji as well. The issue is obviously visas, and also being able to stay somewhere, and if they're mature age, having to get work as well. So it's a huge challenge, but that's what life's all about, isn't it, Aidan? You have a crack at those challenges, and that's what excites you. And when it happens, it's such great reward for effort for everyone involved. So you never give up, and you always keep trying. And there's a Fijian, Radagalia, who plays for Fijian national, plays for Geelong. Big, tall centre-half forward, and no Pakistani nationals as yet. So we're working on getting the first one of them one day.
So in terms of the Footies for All program, do you have a subcontractor workforce that delivers these programs, or you're looking to expand across Australia in that sense, or do you deliver all of the clinics? What's the go with that? Are you looking to expand more broadly across Australia outside of the Western Australia, Northern Territory, Queensland?
Oh, we just use So I link up with schools and sporting clubs and or other relevant charities or organisations, and then I have Footies for All as volunteers in each of those states. And then we mobilise them, or if I'm lucky enough to get a sponsor, then I will go and deliver the programs with a team of other like-minded volunteers. Again, for 11 years, not one single cent that's been donated to the charity goes to any wages. We all do it as volunteers. And then we run the programs, whether it's basketball with Brian Curl or Ricky Baldwin, or AFL with the Wanderers up there in Darwin, or we just take a group of people that pay their own way. We had Jimmy Floyd, an amazing man in out the back of Cairns, who worked with us in Yarrabah. So yeah, it's just footies for all volunteers around Australia that understand the power of sport and want to get involved. And then through funding, where we get it all through private individuals or businesses, then we'll go into a community. And we went to Alco Island, which is 2 hours north of Darwin, and the Tiwi Islands, and we stayed there for a week, which was extraordinary, and then tied the clinics and giving out a ball to attendants. The kids had to come to school to be involved in the program, and then to take a ball home to play with. And when we got there, they're all kicking plastic soft drink bottles around the oval, and when we left, every kid was playing with a ball. And that's how it should be in this great nation of ours, how kids don't have access to sporting equipment, and even worse, a lot of the remote communities don't have fresh water. How can that be, Hayden, in this day and age in our great country, that Aboriginal communities don't have access to fresh water? It's a disgrace, and it's we're obviously talking about the voice, and that needs to happen, so that gives them a voice to Parliament to say, why are we living without fresh water? Why hasn't this been fixed? It's extraordinary that and again, they don't have a large enough voice to get these changes done. And that's the same in the education system. I've seen, obviously, in the sport, and the sport's something I can change with like-minded people, which we're doing.
Assuming that most of your helpers and assistants, and your volunteers for Footies for All are coming from a school sport setting, has there been any discussion with the Department of Education, providing relief for teachers to travel, PE teachers to travel to deliver these programs? Have you had any discussion with the department in trying to, spread this great program more across Australia?
Yeah, lucky enough to speak with the Indigenous ministers here in Victoria and education ministers from the Labor government. And they all say, what a great idea, and keep doing what you're doing. And that's it, basically. And same, I was lucky enough to speak to Kevin Rudd when he was Prime Minister, and also the office of Liberal Prime Minister Tony Abbott. And yeah, you're doing a great job. Keep going. So that's the response. Yeah, but no support like you're saying either. And but you just keep going, don't you? And I've been blessed and honoured to have such amazing volunteers and supporters and sponsors to help us to do what we're doing. And you never give up, and you keep going. And the people and communities that we've been able to get to remember that forever. And that's the impact that you make, that you've told them they're valued and they're honoured, and that we care for them in this way, and we'll give you this opportunity through sport. And we've been lucky enough to reach over 25,000 kids across Australia, which is extraordinary for a volunteer organisation.
Yeah, it's a shame that such a great initiative here hasn't been supported to the extent that you hoped it would be. Is there any way that listeners can get involved? If there's any teachers out there that are considering jumping on board as a volunteer or offering the program in their own school, how can others listening support this great initiative?
Yeah, just go to Footies for All Facebook and Instagram. We're having our website rebuilt as we speak, and let me know if you want to donate, or you want to get involved. And as long as you've got a working with children's check, we'll take anyone at any age and of like mind to give opportunities through sport around Australia for low socioeconomic, disadvantaged. We do a lot of work here in Melbourne with refugee communities as well, and obviously the Aboriginal community, great passion. And every time we go to any of these communities, I certainly learn more and get more given to me than I give out. And that's the same with all our volunteers. And again, it is an honour to be able to enter remote Aboriginal communities and to be treated like family wherever we go. And that's something, again, extraordinary about the Aboriginal people, in spite of the way that they've been treated by white settlers, that they still have open arms to anyone that's going in there with good intentions to learn from them.
So what are some of the biggest things you've learned across this journey so far, Michael, in terms of, obviously traveling abroad and promoting the AFL across Pakistan and Fiji? What are some of the biggest, learning points in your own life, but also, personal development?
Yeah, good question, Aidan. Certainly extraordinary resilience of people. Like as I drove through Pakistan, 40 degrees, you had, 60-year-old brickworker. They make their bricks by hand over there. A lot of it's not developed to the machinery stages that we have in the Western world. And the same, the resilience of Aboriginal kids and Aboriginal communities that in these remote areas, and again, like the villages of Fiji, the resilience of these kids and communities without electricity and limited food and water, and yet their enjoyment of life. They don't whinge. I know we ran a food program. A lot of the remote communities run a breakfast and lunch hot food program for the kids at schools, and same in Fiji and parts of Pakistan. And they never whinge. One of these kids never whinged to me about how bad their lives are or how challenging or how hard it is. And that teaches you to be really grateful, especially in the Western world, if you've got fresh water, if you've got food, if you've got a roof over your head. And I've been blessed by amazing parents that brought me up. And everyone should, if you're in a good state, then you should be in a position to give back as well. That's what it's taught me, to give back where I can. And again, it's taught me the power of having an amazing support base. And I've got the most amazing wife, Amanda, and kids, Thomas, Lily, and Benjamin. And then the supporters. You can do great things with very little if you've got a passionate mindset linked together.
You can do a lot with very little. An awesome takeaway from today, mate. And I just want to say, to all those out there, we're going to pop the details to Footies for All social media channels, but also where they can donate or get in touch with yourself and become a volunteer. But just want to thank you for today, mate, and for sharing your life's experiences and key learnings. You're a diehard Carlton Blues fan, aren't you?
I certainly am.
What's your big tip for the season, mate? Who do you think's gonna take out the premiership this year?
I don't think Carlton, but hopefully Carlton will make the finals. That's a good development. We had a fantastic year last year and very unlucky not to make finals. Love the Blues. My dad backed for the Blues. I was lucky enough to see him win in 81, 82, and unlucky to see him lose in 93, but lucky to see him win in 95. And they're on the right track. We've got some good young kids there. Michael Voss, the ex-Brisbane Lions coach, who was coach when I worked for Brisbane, certainly knows his footy. So, fingers crossed we can make finals this year. And then you've got to get to the top four in AFL to have a chance to win the premiership. Geelong were too good last year, and there's a lot of good sides out there. The competition's very even, and anyone can win on their day. So fingers crossed we can make finals and then top four in 2024.
Yeah, Geelong's always up and around that top four, aren't they? They've been a good team for a long while. But all the best to you, Michael, and the Footies for All charity and all the good work you're doing in the community. It's been great to share that with the audience today, and wishing you all the best moving forward in the future.
Now, a big shout out to you, Hayden, for doing what you're doing and giving, normal, non-celebrity, crazy people such as myself an opportunity to tell you their story, because that's what inspires other people that are, thinking about doing something to help other people in whatever field. And we need more of you out there. We have such opportunities in the Western world to give back to all different areas of people that are struggling, and that's what I urge people to do. If you're in that space and you're going okay, to give back to whatever passionate cause that you want to get involved in. And great credit to yourself for allowing us to bring our stories to the people of Australia and around the world.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for your time. We'll leave it there. Great chat, and I'll no doubt speak to you again in the future soon.
All right. Thanks, Hayden.